Hi. So, like yesterday, we will be ending the day with the case study of an institution. And like we shared, the idea of that is that on Monday, you will be invited to choose one of the institutions within your groups and develop a module that is specific to their context. So, that will be an assignment for you to do until the 18th of August session, where we will have a round of presentations of all the lesson plans that you have devised. We'll speak more about this in detail, but just to give you some information beforehand. So today's case study is the Community Library Project. Based out of Delhi NCR, TCLP is a very vibrant institution which believes that every child and every person has a right to access books, literature, and education. And their libraries are a testament to that. They have 4 branches in urban villages in Delhi. And if you would like to see what shared ownership looks like, then please do visit their places as well. You will come back feeling like the children own the place. We are very happy that 4 TCLP members have been part of this workshop. There's Manisha, Amita, Ritika, and Prachi. So Prachi will be presenting the case study of TCLP and their work during the lockdown, given that the physical spaces have been of vital essence to them. Prachi is the curriculum coordinator at the Community Library Project. She has previously worked as a consultant at the Department of Higher Education, Andhra Pradesh government, and as a research associate studying education, leadership, and management. She has completed her MPhil in education with a specialization in children's response to literature. She is also joined by Michael Creighton, who has been associated with TCLP since 2015 as a curriculum coordinator. He holds a master's degree in education and has worked in special and general education since 1997 in India and in the US. He is also a learning support teacher at the American Embassy School in Delhi. So thank you, thank you, Prachi and Michael, for joining us. So I'll just hand it over to you guys.
Thanks, Sukanya. Can I share my screen now?
Yeah.
Great. So welcome, everybody. My name is Michael, and we're super happy to have you here. Maybe we could go straight to the agenda. I've been teaching long enough to know that at 3:30 in the afternoon, after 3 intense days, or however long you've been doing this, that everybody's tired. So I really appreciate that. And while I always love to see your faces, if anyone needs to get up and stretch and do something while I kind of introduce this, feel free. Your brain probably needs a little bit of oxygen. Really quickly, this is our agenda. We're sharing our agenda. Secret here is because if you tell learners what they're going to do, they're more likely to kind of understand what you're doing. So this is the broad overview. First of all, I say welcome. Welcome because, and also thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Welcome because that is one of the 3 biggest rules in our library. Sabhi ka swagat hai. Everyone is welcome. And it's really important that we're explicit with that. The second one is we try to talk to everybody pyar se, with love. It's very important. The third one is reading is thinking. I would like you to read that broadly like we do and think of reading art, reading a movie, reading film. Those are all acts of thinking. And we are fundamentally about those 3 things. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, our programs, how the pandemic changed things, and Duniya Sabki. Duniya Sabki, everyone's world. The name of our literature series, where we invite poets and other thinkers to come to the library in a community setting, was Sahitya Sabki, Duniya Sabki, literature, everyone's world. So that is the name of our online library, and we'll talk about that as well as, and then we'll ask you to think about questions you have and ideas you might have in terms of how to do this very challenging thing, which we're doing, which is you know, unlike what I'm doing at the American school where kids can use Padlet and they can use Flipgrid and they can use a dozen other apps, which none of us have ever heard of, even me, our students don't have access to that. So we want to try to be good librarians, good teachers, educators, pedagogically sound, but we know that we have limitations based on that. Okay, next slide, please, Prachi. All right, really basically our vision and mission is that we think society will be better, more equitable, thoughtful if people have access to books and places to think critically, to introspect. We believe in free and inclusive libraries, and we think those things will make that happen better. And that we're building a movement. We don't think that the government alone or NGOs alone, or we think this has to be a very broad-based kind of approach. I would love to talk to you more about that, but we don't have time. We do run, as you've heard, 4 free libraries, and we issue a lot of books. We have member and volunteer leaders, as well as wonderful staff. I guess I'd like to say we are a lab. A lab in the sense that we try to figure out how to do things well, and also a model. People come from all over the country, and I'm not kidding about that, regularly to see what we're doing. And we don't kid you, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, that's part of being a lab. We try to figure that stuff out. We look at the data and we say, this doesn't seem like it's working. We look at what members are saying, but we try to figure that out. Okay. We do a ton of things. I mean, from community walks where we go talk to members, book reports, arts and crafts, game room, you name it, all these things, because the library is not during the pandemic, unfortunately, and that's a whole nother question we'll get to, but the library as it exists, as it has existed before the pandemic, was this vibrant social space, this space where you come together and you might hear a read aloud, you might make an art project, you might, anyway, I'm not going to tell you all those things, but there's a lot. And I just would say that one thing about read alouds is that read alouds we think of as a bridge between oral traditions and books. And we don't want to replace oral traditions, but unlike a book, which can seem like a lonely thing if you're reading it alone, a read aloud, when we do them, is a social kind of thing. So in our libraries, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. You'll see librarians reading to children. You'll notice the open shelves. You don't have to go get a key and ask somebody, ma'am, where can I go get a book? You get the book you want to get. We do cultural events where we have, well, we can't really say hundreds because we couldn't fit hundreds, but we've had at least 150 people packed into our library on several occasions to see poets. Akil Katyal came and read for us, Manglais Sabral. We've had all kinds of interesting kind of cultural events, as well as, Urvashi Battaglia came. We've had sometimes, anyway, so lots and lots of interesting things that happen, and those are open to the community, and the community comes. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and.
So as Michael pointed out, there have been a lot of things that we do in the library. We have open shelves, we have a lot of books. Most importantly, it gives us a space where everybody's free to walk in. So we see children walking in and out of the library all day long. They don't need permission, they don't need ID cards, they don't need to pay any fees. They can just walk into the library, and it's a free space where they can read, where they can think, where they can collectively further their ideas. Now, what the pandemic has done is close down that physical space. So essentially, the children that had access to thousands of books kept on open shelves, they suddenly don't have books in their hands. A lot of our members have actually left Delhi or the areas like Delhi or NCR they were living in, and they've gone back to their villages. Even though we have started a program online, we realize a lot of our members do not have the devices or internet facilities to access them. And we have been getting a lot of distress calls from our members and their parents because they have lost their work, they are unable to get ration, they are unable to get medical facilities. So we realize that there are a lot of things that have changed during the pandemic. And while one response to it has been starting our online library Dunya Sabki, but we are also very much aware of the fact that it cannot offer everything that a physical library can. Most importantly, it cannot offer the kind of relationship that you can build when you meet together in a free space. So But yes, we had to move to an online platform, as we have been discussing in the last 3 days. Like that was an imperative that we had to do. So we started Dunya Sabki, our online library. Now, so Dunya Sabki essentially runs on many different platforms. Which those platforms are and why we use those platforms, we'll come to that later. But the important thing is that through Dunya Sabki, we deliver good quality, relevant reading material to our members, and we try to continue and build on the relationship that we have with them, or we be very strongly built with them when we were meeting in the physical library before the pandemic. So it was important to continue with that. So what we started doing was we started creating a lot of content, a lot of read alouds, which is a very essential part of what we do at the library. As Michael mentioned, it's how we bring students to books. It's how we help them connect both their worlds, the world of books and the world of storytelling that they have been used throughout their lives. But there's also this question of why Dunya Sabki was important. You know, there is a lot of online content. There are a lot of storytellers recording stories and putting on YouTube. So why Dunya Sabki? Well, when we did go into the lockdown, we had a lot of discussions around it and why we specifically need to produce some material for our members. And I think one biggest challenge we realized was that our members may or may not know how to use YouTube. Probably very few of them know. Two, we realized that a lot of the content that's available on YouTube is mostly in English, which is not the primary language of most of our members. We also realized that even if they are able to access that content is prepared by people they do not know. And stories are always a lot more fun when you can share it with people that you know, that you have a relationship with. So we realized that we as librarians have the responsibility to ensure that our members keep getting good reading material. So we started Dunya Sabki, through which we reach out to about 1,500 of our library members. We reach out to more than 200 librarians and educators across the country. We do most of it through WhatsApp, but we'll also talk about what more we do with the various platforms we have.
So we're going to show you a read aloud example, and I just want to say for context, none of us knew how to use Zoom, much less Screencastify or OBS or all these these open source ways of recording screens before the lockdown. This is an example of a read aloud done by a student council member within 2 weeks of the lockdown. You know, we had meetings with kids on phones and young members and adults and librarians where we taught them how to do all these things. And I think it's pretty cool. If you don't know Hindi, you just have to miss some of it. But if you do, it's a great read aloud. So
I'll play just in case you're not able to hear the audio. Please let me know.
हेलो एवरीवन, मेरा नाम सिंपी है। मैं द कम्युनिटी लाइब्रेरी प्रोजेक्ट की स्टूडेंट काउंसिल हूँ। दुनिया सबकी में आपका स्वागत है। अच्छा, आप लोगों ने कभी ऐसा सोचा है कि सारी लड़कियाँ एक जैसी हो तो कैसा होगा? शायद बोरिंग होगा या इंटरेस्टिंग होगा, या ऐसा होगा भी या नहीं, या होना चाहिए या नहीं। तो मेरी आज की कहानी इसी से रिलेटेड है, जिसका नाम है सतरंगी लड़कियाँ, और इसके लेखक है कमला भासेन, और इसकी चित्रकारी की है प्रिया कुरियान ने। क्या सब लड़कियां एक जैसी होती हैं, या सब लड़कियों को एक जैसा होना चाहिए? सब एक जैसी हो तो कितना बोरिंग होगा। कुछ लड़कियां ऐसी दिखती हैं, कुछ ना ऐसी ना वैसी, वो तो कुछ और ही दिखती हैं। कुछ लड़कियां फ्रॉक पहनती हैं, कुछ निक्कर या शॉर्ट्स में चहकती हैं, कुछ घघरी या लहंगे में होती हैं, कुछ तो अपने पिताजी का कुर्ता चढ़ा लेती है, बिल्कुल मेरी तरह। मैं भी पापा से छुप के उनका टी शर्ट डाल के डांस करती हूँ। कुछ के बाल है छोटे, कुछ के बाल है लंबे, और ये तो गंजी है, वाह। इनको पेड़ पर चढ़ना पसंद है, इनका मन करता है गुड़िया बनाने और उनके नखरे झेलने का, और इन्हें किसी पर भी बैठकर घूमना पसंद है, साइकिल, घोड़ा, गधा, कुछ भी। इनको भाता है जोर से गाना और इनको गुनगुनाना। इन्हें शौक है पतंगबाजी का, गिल्ली डंडा खेलने का। कुछ लड़कियों को घर में रहना, पिताजी की गोद में बैठना पसंद है। कुछ को घर से भागना पसंद है। उनका मन तो बस खेल में ही लगता है। इन्हें सजना धजना पसंद है। इनके पास ना सजने धजने का वक्त, ना शौक। ये तो फटे कपड़ों और बिखरे बालों में भी मस्त हैं। लड़कियां कभी कभी शांत होती है, पर कभी कभी वो नटखट और शरारती भी होती है। शायद आप लोग भी होंगे। और लड़कियों को कभी कभी बहुत गुस्सा आता है और वो खूब चिल्लाती है। मैं भी बहुत खूब चिल्लाती हूँ कभी कभी। लड़कियां मददगार, दयालु, नटखट, खुश, नाराज, शरारती, चिड़चिड़ी सब कुछ होती है। बच्चे जैसा भी बनना चाहे बन सकते हैं, क्योंकि हर एक बच्चा अपने आप में अनोखा होता है। और शायद फिर इसके हिसाब से लड़कियां अगर एक जैसी हो तो बहुत बोरिंग होगा मेरे हिसाब से, क्योंकि सबकी अपनी एक क्वालिटी, अनोखी चीज़ होती है उसके अंदर, जो उन्हें अलग इंसान बनाती है, जो बोलते हैं कि हाँ, इसकी वजह से ये अनोखी है। तो शायद आपको ये स्टोरी पसंद आई हो। अगर आपको ये स्टोरी पसंद आई तो आप इसी की तरह और भी स्टोरी पढ़ सकते हैं, जो कि है स्टोरी वीवर लिंक पर। आपको लिंक नीचे दिया गया है, तो आप वहाँ से और स्टोरी पढ़ सकते हैं।
Okay, so that was an example of a read aloud. Not exactly how we do at the library because we didn't have the students sitting around, but essentially what we do. So the story was called Rainbow Girls. And what Simpi was doing with the read aloud was not just telling a story from the book, but also inviting her audience to think along with her. She was asking questions, she was telling what she's thinking about it, and she was also inviting everyone else to think what they are feeling about the book that they're hearing the story of. So that's essentially what read louds do. And when we send these read louds to our members in a WhatsApp post, we design it somewhat like this. So we write captions. The captions are meant to make them more interactive. The captions are also meant to give them an entry point into the story, to give them an introduction, and to have some context to think about when they start hearing the read aloud. We also share some links, which essentially are links to reading material, because generally when you read aloud to students, they would want to hold that book in their hand and they would want to read it through and take it back home and read it to their parents or to their siblings. So some reading material to go along with the read aloud. But what is also very essential is that this whole process of how this content is prepared and how this content is shared with everybody. So you saw an example of what a student leader from the library prepared for sharing with all the members. Now, this was actually a very long process where all the librarians, all the volunteers that are preparing content, all the student leaders, they underwent a training program, and then they collectively prepare a lot of read aloud videos. We also try to curate material that's available online. So whether that's PDF files, or there are good links, or there are audio read louds or video read louds. So we prepare a lot of content. We're also very mindful that a lot of our members who do have internet access may not have enough data to be able to view videos. So we also send audio files which require a lot less data to access. So we've sent a variety of material to our members. Now, this entire material that's collected through existing sources or the material that's prepared by librarians, volunteers, and student leaders goes through a detailed editorial process that I'll talk about in the next slide. And once they kind of actually pass through the editorial process, they are then shared with all the members. So essentially, all the content that's uploaded by whoever's preparing it onto the drive, it's reviewed for its technical clarity, like quality, if there is any noise in the background, if it's the appropriate size, and in terms of content, if it's inclusive, if it's encouraging thinking, if it's providing the important information that we need to. So the editorial team actually goes through each and every content that's uploaded, and then they share detailed feedback with whoever's preparing the read aloud. If needed, they even re-record it, or if it requires some editing process, and it goes through some editing process. But even after it's sorted, it's re-recorded or it's edited and everything's done, there's still this question of preparing it for sharing. So we write captions for them, and we sort them through various categories because we realize that we cannot just share one kind of content every day. So we need to ensure that a diverse kind of content reaches our audience. So they often also come up with a lot of requests. So horror stories being one of the favorite kind of stories that students love to hear. So we often get WhatsApp messages, ki, ma'am, please send horror stories. Ma'am, please tell, share fairy tales or fox ki kahani. So a lot of requests come in. So we try to cater to these requests and try to share funny stories, science-based stories, social sciences-based stories, stories on disabilities, so that the members have access to diverse kind of literature. And then each content, along with the caption, is adapted for the various platforms where we host our content. Those platforms being WhatsApp, YouTube, and SoundCloud, the website, and we have a Telegram channel too. So essentially on WhatsApp, all of these actually have their own advantages and their own disadvantages. And there are very some specific purposes why we share on these specific platforms. So for example, early on, we realized that WhatsApp is what our members use. In the very first week when we actually started creating channels, and we had to create 10 channels to cater to all the students that come to our library, the very first day when we started creating channel, our library phone number got banned because we realized that WhatsApp does not allow new accounts to add a lot of unknown phone numbers onto in groups. The numbers, we knew the numbers obviously because there are members, but WhatsApp doesn't know that. So we got blocked. So essentially we realized that there are so many challenges that you don't even think of that you have to cater to when you start working on this. So most of our concerns so far had been about creating good content, how to share content. We were worried that if we create groups, will our members even recognize that it's a library group? What we hadn't anticipated were these kind of technical issues where the number could get banned. And a lot of people suggested that move to Telegram, but we also realized that our members don't use Telegram, so that's really not an option. So WhatsApp became the medium which is most accessible. So that's where we share read louds and activities and important information related to ration access, what precautions one needs to be taking during this time of pandemic with all our library members. We have YouTube and SoundCloud channel that provides us with, it helps us reach out to a wider audience. It also provides us with the important cloud storage, which helps us host videos on our website. And the website itself has developed into an online library where if you actually go to the website and check it out, you will see we have bookshelves there essentially. And the bookshelves are designed in a similar way as we have the bookshelves in the library to create as real an experience as the digital library can be. And then of course we have Telegram, which actually helps us create that as like an archive where we can store a lot of content and reach out to teachers and to educators and to librarians. So essentially, it's a very conscious choice to decide which hosting platform you want to use, what kind of content you want to share, and how you want to share the content, keeping in mind which audience you are trying to reach out to and what's the purpose of sharing this particular kind of content.
So, really quickly, the questions that we've been asking ourselves and that we would also ask you to think about, because we're all more powerful at thinking when we think together. And maybe there's some things that we missed. I mean, so that last one is, what are we missing? But how do we develop art activities and learning through Dunya Sabki? That would be great. Kids like arts and crafts type stuff. So that would be one thing that would be helpful. We know how to make the videos, and that's not super hard to do. But the ideas about what goes into it is stuff that is things we could learn from. Also, how to get more member engagement and involvement. We can't open up the channels and be like free-for-alls because they get way too messy and people would just flee them. We do get requests from members to the administrators, we've thought about setting up like temporary book talk groups, or like setting up a group saying join by this link. We haven't really got that, but like there's ways that even What's Up can be more, could be more engaging and inclusive. Our team is just working so hard that it's like we come up with a great idea and sometimes it sits on the shelf for, a month or two because we just don't have the kind of the bandwidth to do that plus everything else we're trying to do. But again, like what can we do with, we want to think of What's Up in other places as spaces. We want to think of them as a way to, how do we involve more members in that space, if because we don't have libraries right now. We're working on building them. We've got moved out of it. We had to move from a couple libraries right before the pandemic, and we're working on rebuilding and hope and exploring how to open up as safely as possible and as soon as possible. But anyhow, so those are some of the questions, and I guess we could open it up to questions you have, ideas you have, and talk a little bit. And I know you've got limited time, so.
Yeah, hi, I'm Malvika. I'm a visual artist based in Burgoda, and I work with the Azim Premji Foundation, mostly with the art and music teachers. So I've known of your work for a couple of years at least, and I also use a lot of these resources, especially Pratham Story Weaver and things like that. My question, and since we are handling very similar contexts and situations, I find that even when a story is shared to the target learners, the responses from them sometimes don't always reach us. We may not get responses from all the children, but it's a few cases where they have been good, or a few of our teachers have tried some interesting responses is by making them do some art-related activity and then maybe related to the story. One example I could give you is a teacher taught the kids basic with origami and told children, you create your own stories using these puppets, imagine things and send them back. And we got some pretty fantastic videos of kids making the puppets and using them and performing the story and narrating it and sending it back. However, the question still remains as to what do we do with kids who don't have a video recording access or something like that, and they're not always inclined to writing their thoughts or penning it down. So it's becoming a little bit of an issue. So in some places they've started community work physically, and I was wondering if you have tried anything in the physical location at this point, in addition to your WhatsApp and distance learning modes?
So one quick answer, and Prachi can add, is we're being a little careful in Delhi because like we're not actually, educational institutions and stuff are not allowed to be physical, and we want to be, for reasons I don't want to go into right now. Libraries are often seen as political because they are, but not in the way that, and so we want to be careful about that. Plus the health concern is also something. Our team we do have a committee this meeting tomorrow for the second time to kind of try to start. Also, we don't have the space in many places. So we're building that and looking at it, and we will, like our reading fluency program is coming up. We will get real books to kids. We know that they need real books. We'll do it Zoom based. We're trying it for the first time, but kids will have real books and a chance to at least meet the teacher and their parents in person. So that's important. Yeah. We can't this is not going to be a replacement. We should be really clear. We don't think that this will replace the physical space at all. It's a compromise for everyone, even for really, really rich kids. But for kids with really good technology, it's a much closer approximation to a real learning experience. I mean, you guys have learned a lot this time, I suspect, in this workshop because you've had access to this kind of technology. Our kids don't, and we know that as a teacher, it's like if your class is up the stairs and around the corner and you somehow have to shout up the stairs to teach the lesson that way, it's really, really hard, right? So we want to be clear that we don't think this is a long-term answer. It's the best we can do right now.
Susanna wrote in the chat box that exploring Facebook group to create a community there, and that would be brilliant. Unfortunately, again, the problem is that most of our members do not use Facebook, and a lot of them, even like with using a lot of the video resource that we send, we also realized we had to send tutorial videos on how to access a lot of the materials. So for example, if you're sending a link, so for example, if you want to use Pratham's Story Weaver, then it has this login requirement after a certain number of books have been clicked on. And our members will have a hard time accessing books after they have reached the 20 book limit. So, so a similar concern with a lot of these resources that are available in the digital media. So yeah, that's something that we need to be mindful of when we are creating. So we realize that when we are going to move to Zoom for our reading fluency classes, it's actually going to, so like just yesterday, one of my colleagues who's one of the reading specialists at our library, she was on a phone call with a member. She was enrolling for the program, and it was a 40-minute call. And it turned out to be a 40-minute call because they spent more than half of it figuring out how to install Zoom. And then there will be several days of tutorials on how to use Zoom. So, so it's actually, it obviously becomes a lot harder because we are not in the same space and we're talking over phone. Obviously, it will go a lot smoother if we could actually just meet and tell, oh, this is how you install Zoom. And the kids were super excited and they were like super brilliant at it. They worked collectively, the siblings, to sort out and to follow the instructions, and they did a brilliant job at the end of it. But instructions are a lot harder to follow that way when you are so far apart.
Yeah, in fact, I have visited the community library last time when I came. So these are what you said just inspired me to think. During the pandemic time in Europe, like people, like musicians singing at the rooftop, then the whole area, people just see it through the window kind of thing. So I just wondering, because I see they are living very close to each other in a small community, like if there could be a car or a van, then someone could have a speakers to do it. I mean, just like mobile library, we are doing mobile library in Nepal, but in a more community level can speak aloud, like, yeah. More back to the basic thing.
I mean, and again, that's one of the things the committee's been talking about, public spaces and how we could access that. And one of the fears, honestly, is that we're afraid of the police because we can't control how many people, like we can, in a private, more like in a space that we can control, we have some control over who comes in. We can, I mean, it doesn't mean we're not going to do anything like that, but we were talking about parks just the other day and inviting people to a read aloud in the park. And we thought, well, what if like 25 or 30 kids come and then everybody starts going, what's going on? And then we get the police aren't going to come up and be your friendly, like, hey, it's so great what you're trying to do. That's not how we expect it would go down. And so this is challenging, but yeah, I think you're right. We need to think, like, how do we get books in the hands of kids is something we're really thinking about. Maybe late night hours open for, like, even if we don't have a library that's completely fixed, we could put tables outside. Once we get the space that's safe itself, we're definitely want to do outside activities that are safe and figure out how to get books to kids and tell stories and stuff. I think that'll be great,
Another question that's coming from Supriya is like a suggestion saying exploring phone call as a medium for peer-to-peer storytelling. How would you?
That would be interesting to explore. So we have been using a lot of we have been using phone calls as a medium for kind of doing survey and reaching out to members to ask if they're all right. So like, I think we have made more than 1,500 calls so far, all the librarians collectively, and we have more surveys coming up. Like in the next week, I think we are calling another 1,000 or so students. But we haven't actually explored the idea of getting 2 students on call and them interacting. I think that could be interesting. Maybe you do a phone call read aloud where we could do more of member-to-member read aloud. So yeah, thanks for the suggestion. We would definitely look into it.
Yeah, I mean, what we didn't talk about was, I think that the number is more than 2,000 and probably much more than that in terms of phone calls coming in and out. a lot of the organization had to work on. We weren't a ration organization, but we coordinated rations in the neighborhood with working with other organizations, and it took a ton of work. So the curriculum team was doing this thing. Many librarians were doing this and making ration calls related to that, informational calls. And we're not doing that right now because nobody's delivering rations anymore, and we don't have organizations to do that. But anyway, but yeah, phone is probably the most accessible thing. And again, we have to kind of think about these things to get our minds around them, because we never had to do this, right? I mean, anyway, it's a good idea.
Yes, voice notes will be fantastic to use, actually. That's something that we have been talking a lot about. And we were wondering how students will respond to that. So maybe if you'd like to include that in your module and share more of how you would use voice notes.
Like one idea that we were just banging away last night at, and then I wanted to call the Dunia Subki one of the coordinators, and then Prachi reminded me that she's like been putting in 12-hour days forever, and so I didn't. But was the idea like, would it be possible to open up like a temporary little chat group and have kids join that? I think it would be. I'm not sure how it would work, but like maybe you'd have like just how are you doing? A voice, a little video voice note thing. How's it going? Talk a little bit about, and kids could send voice notes, and kids could. So I don't know, like, and then that would close, so it wouldn't gum up the parents' phones with notifications for a million notifications forever, right? I mean, we just shut the group down. So something we're trying to figure out, how can we use the technology to get social as much as, I think that's the thing. The back and forth is what we've been not as good at. We do get feedback, but not as much, right? So how do we get that talk? Yeah. Anyway.
Next, there's another suggestion by Aurorashmi. It would be great to involve practicing and experienced teachers as volunteers who are already working with students who can help in a multi-direction. So he's suggesting experienced teachers to kind of get involved and provide, kind of brainstorm through these solutions.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Susanna is saying about the mobile library that she was talking about earlier. Maybe if within the locality, if they have windows, if they can open up their windows and their storytelling taking place through a loudspeaker, if they could listen through in that way.
I think they're trying that in Chhattisgarh with Pratham Story Weavers. They were sharing that they've been using like loudspeakers to narrate stories. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting, right? I mean, one of the things that all these technologies do, and we have to think about how they're all, I mean, the technology, I mean, books are a technology, but we have to be careful of like, what is the distance it creates, right? Like, and we know that WhatsApp creates a distance, right? So so a loudspeaker it'd be interesting. A lot of times people kind of tune it out because they know it's like, dengue, terrorism, vote for me, and everybody just kind of, so I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be interesting, but again, like as much as possible, how do we bring people closer? And some of that may be in the physical space. I mean, like we are committed to opening up as soon as we can. And we hope in September that the restrictions will lighten up a little bit and we'll be ready to sort of use the space that we have creatively outside as much as possible to start. And so those ideas will be interesting, right? I mean, how do you get kids there? I mean, maybe the loudspeakers, hey, the community library is here. Maybe, anyway, good stuff, yeah.
Susanna is also asking about radio, and I think yesterday Anurupa was talking about community radio and setting up like, I don't know, online radio systems. And I think that some groups are working on that but I don't know enough.
I think
about
Agaz in Delhi.
Yeah, she was mentioning Agaz, which I think also works with
Yes.
TCLP.
Yeah, we should talk to them because it's way smarter. I mean, it's way more. I think we would just be eliminated to making that up because, and as hard as it was to figure out what's up, I mean, it's just that might be too hard. But it would be great if somebody knew how to do it and showed us, right? So those are the kind of things that we just probably couldn't do it ourselves. But it's a really great idea. Like I would love to have kids people doing radio reader type stuff. That would be awesome.
There's a comment in relation to having a WhatsApp group. To get kids more involved, you could maybe have one activity where they share a few lines via voice notes and they build a story as they go along. They could even read one book and they could each give a different ending to it.
Yeah, and that's a super cool idea. The one thing that we have, one of our limitations just for you guys, again, this is why I'm thinking of this separate WhatsApp group somehow inviting, is that we have, between 100 and 200 members in these groups. So we can't open it up like we would a classroom group, you know what I mean? Where it would just be, this time is where I think we tried thinking about that but we could, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things we could do within a separate sort of voluntary, temporary type group thing. I think that would be interesting. Those ideas would be really cool to look at. And also art ideas would be great because our kids really do like making stuff. And sometimes they do make projects and things, but then it would have to be fairly accessible materials, right? How do you make something out of like something that they would have access to? Which there's a lot of junk laying around, so.
Yeah, we did one such where it's an ongoing project again, where children are looking at text available around the house on everything. So you're looking at of course there's the newspaper, but there's also food packets to just about like wherever you can find things written, like including if you have a microwave and you have a start and a stop and a heat, and just collecting words, and then you sort of just then slowly start to build with a partner. So their club, like there are couples made in the classroom, and they're making little tiny stories that are coming out from kind of like little haikus, then kind of getting into things. So we're trying to do this long one month long project with them because it's their month of usually in this time of the school year they would have their big drop everything and read celebrations. So we're trying to keep that intact through this long project going on. And it's been interesting to see some work being uploaded just off chip packets to like little pamphlets they found in the building and things like that. So it's, could be material with text is easily available.
That's great, yeah.
That sounds
And the rural area question is interesting because one of the things we were trying to do is that one of the reasons for the Telegram channel is that educators could join a Telegram channel and they'd have access to all of the past stuff that's on the channel, unlike WhatsApp, which only gives you the going forward stuff. So the Telegram channel we're building is a resource for teachers and other people who are living in rural areas who might be able to pass that. And we're making modules and making tutorials of how you go from Telegram a post to WhatsApp, how you modify it for your own needs and stuff. So that's another kind of question there. I mean, most of our kids, so some of our members are in the rural areas, and so we're planning a survey in the next couple of weeks to look again at sort of who's listening, where are they, what do they like, and that's a phone thing again, right? So that's probably the most direct thing to do.
I've had a thought lately, and this has been my preoccupation for a while now. Because of this shift, we are thinking through technology a lot. But I sort of like to take a step back and try to think of the possibilities that we did not explore even before this situation hit us. So, for instance, audiobooks. There's immense potential in audiobooks that is dormant right now, that is not being exploited. If you think of music, it's something we all connect to, but we do not necessarily meet the musicians. Of course, live music is something a lot of us enjoy, but music is something that we universally connect with. So, ideas like someone suggested a phone call for story sharing. We can, I don't know, I'm thinking out loud here. Like I said, you can have a story hour where 2-3 of your members can read out a story, I don't know, a bedtime or a morning story, and maybe they can create their own audiobook, and stuff like that. Because when you pose the question that what are the art activities can be involved, I am not necessarily looking at this as exclusive to the reading, because the same material can be disseminated in a lot of ways, through sound, through visual, through text. So, and I think because of the situation that we've been hit with, we can really go wild with our ideas here. I'll think more, but this is something that I had to share.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
I wonder if it would be, it might be a nice kind of project if there was, say, like an exchange of postcards. It could be, it could involve like art making as well as like your own story development, like in short excerpts, or maybe quotes that you can take, or just parts of stories that you can take. And it could be kind of a secret Santa kind of like system where you don't know what you're going to get next as well. So that kind of exchange might be something that children actually like look forward to. Like you're waiting for days and then you kind of get something, and then you're supposed to write back to pass on to someone else. So I mean, I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we used to have a box where you could sort of say stuff to people in the library, and we'd read it at assembly, and it was kind of fun. Like, we'd make sure it was nice and appropriate and stuff, but it was kind of a post box that kids made, and that's not exactly the same thing. But I think these ideas of trying to get people talking to each other, I mean, that's it's kind of lonely in many ways, although we see kids in the library are out in the streets. I mean, we do know when we walk through the neighborhoods that some of them are still there. So, yeah.
These are all great ideas. Thanks for sharing them, and we are looking forward to trying some of them, definitely.
Yeah, thank you
so much. We're looking forward to developing something along this case study as well. It would be quite exciting to see what we can do with WhatsApp or maybe other technologies, or let's see what we come up with as well within our groups. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was lovely having you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Prachi.